Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Dion Cruikshank, and we are entering into the final segment of our fourth day of the Norman Manley Law School Legal Aid Clinic Fair. This afternoon, we will be welcoming with us Mr. Jay Cousins, who represents the Water Authority, and he will be engaging us and informing us of what we need to know as consumer. I apologize, it's Miss Avian Morgan Johnson, who will be representing the Water Resources Authority, and she will be telling us all we need to know about being a consumer in dealing with water. And at this time, I present Ms. Shamar Bryan, who will now do the welcome.
A pleasure to have you, by the way. I love your earrings. Really nice. Mrs. Avian Morgan Johnson stands as a prominent figure within the realm of water resource management, environment stewardship, and sustainable development. With a career spanning approximately 2 decades, Avian has exemplified unwavering dedication and expertise in ensuring the sustainable utilization and protection of Jamaica's water resources. Born and raised in the verdant landscapes of St. Catherine, big up, whoop, whoop. She developed an early fascination with the natural world and a deep-seated commitment to protecting it. Avian pursued her secondary education at the prestigious St. Andrew High School for Girls, where she spent 7 years before continuing her tertiary education in geography and geology, then environmental science and policy, then hydrogeology, earning a bachelor's and master's degree from the University of the West Indies, Mona. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Okay. Throughout the academic journey, Avian engaged in research projects focused on urban sprawl, habitat preservation, and the impacts of climate change on vulnerable ecosystems. Her journey into water resource management was propelled by her teachers at St. Andrew High School. Her passion for geography and the environment engendered in her a deep-rooted passion for environmental conservation and a keen interest in hydrological systems. Armed with academic rigor, motivation from her teachers, and practical experience, she embarked on a mission to safeguard water resources and promote equitable access to this precious resource. Avian's tenure with the Water Resource Authority has been marked by a series of transformative initiatives aimed at enhancing water security and resilience in the face of evolving environmental changes. As a seasoned hydrogeologist within the organization, she has played a pivotal role in formulating and implementing innovative strategies for resources protection, watershed management, and water quality monitoring. At the forefront of her agenda is the promotion of sustainable water practices that prioritize conservation, efficiency, and equity. Her leadership within the WRA extends beyond traditional boundaries, encompassing a commitment to environmental justice and community empowerment. With a visionary outlook and a steadfast commitment to sustainability, Mrs. Avian Morgan Johnson continues to shape the future of water resource management, leaving an indelible mark on the landscape of environmental stewardship.
Welcome, thank you very much. What's your name?
Shamar Brian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brian. All right, so I'm going to present today on the role of the Water Resources Authority and how you guys can help in protecting and conserving Jamaica's precious water resources. So as mentioned by Mr. Brian, my name is Avian Morgan Johnson, and I'm the senior. Let me open this slide, display setting. Oops. Okay, yeah. Senior hydrogeologist at the Water Resources Authority, and I'm head of the license and regulation section that deals with all the licensing and permits for the island resources. So what exactly we do? We allocate, manage, protect, and conserve Jamaica's freshwater resources. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but if you understand the gravity of how important water is to all of us, if you look at this quote, it tells us that thousands have lived without love, but no one can live without water. And you know how precious water is to all of us. As it says, your body is made up of 90% water or 70% water. That's what they say, all right? So to give you some more about what I'll be presenting today, I'll give you more information about the authority, the departments of the authority, the roles and the function of the license and regulation section, the permitting and licensing process, and how you can assist us. Now, by virtue of the Water Resources Act of 1995, the WRA was born. Prior to that, in the 1960s, we were called the Underground Water Authority. We were just a division. And with the Water Resources Act, we were mandated to assess, regulate, allocate, conserve, protect the water resources of the island. And our vision is to regulate, protect, manage Jamaica's water resources, and to influence the process of distribution, conservation, sustainability, and the safety of supply. This is encapsulated in a whole heap of processes, and I will go further to tell you how the different departments really work to achieve that vision. Our mission is really to secure water security for all Jamaicans, and by virtue of that mission, we have a value statement which really gives us our charge, which is to help to sustain long-term water security for Jamaicans through sustainability, safely and equitably management of water resources. Now, when you look at the WRA, we are broken up into different branches and sections. So we have 4 technical areas and 4 administrative areas. The 4 technical areas are our resource monitoring and data collection section, where we go about and assess and look at the variability of water in terms of time and space, and that's our surface and groundwater. We have a total of 130 surface water monitoring points, 31 rain gauges, and 287 groundwater monitoring points. For the license and regulation section, we deal primarily with allocation of the water resources to the permits and licensing system, and we regulate license. Also, we do compliance work, regularize illegal abstraction, we do water tests, well records, and we ensure that the database for all the abstractors right across the island, it is actually updated, and there is a record for all persons who have a license in the island. For the resource planning and investigation section, that section deals mainly with planning and protection of the resources. They map aquifer vulnerability across the island. They deal mainly with the master plan, the generation and updating of the water resources master plan. They deal with project-based hydrological research and assessment. And our last technical unit is the environment and water quality section. They maintain a database for water quality monitoring right across the island, the impacts that anthropogenic impacts have on our water resources, and they conduct also development assessment through the development approval process. And those are our 4 technical branches. Now for the environmental water quality section, that's a new department that is coming on stream. It's not fully outfitted as yet. And that will be coming on stream by the next financial year. For our administrative branch, of course, we have the human resources and administration section, our records management and information section, our finance and accounting section, and our ICT section. For the human resources, they deal mainly with human resource management, including recruitment, training, performance evaluation, etc., and procurement. For the records management section, they deal with maintaining the WRA records and leading the public engagement and stakeholder public outreach programs. For the finance and account section, of course, they would deal with the finances and the budget and the salaries. And for the ICT, they deal mainly with the infrastructure, the IT infrastructure, hardware, software, and GIS. Now, the WRA is made up of, as mentioned, the resource monitoring section, and that is really our foundation. They deal with data collection. And from that, we're able to build with doing the assessment, monitoring, management of the resources. So if you look at the house structure here, you see data, the resource data monitoring, that is a foundation. And through that monitoring and getting the data collected, we're able to do our water resource planning, rational allocation, our water resource conservation, and our resource protection. So the data collection does the assessing of the quality and the quantity, the variation in time of space, and they do this through a hydromet network, and that information is provided on our WRA web map. Also, through that data, we're able to manage environmental, social, and economic impacts on the water resources. And we're able to also do water resources development activities through policies and strategies to minimize the negative impact. And this is through the permits and license system, the VBF, and the development assistance process. We also are able to raise awareness, public awareness, for critical issues related to our water resource protection, conservation. And we do this through our public engagement like this one, or through our World Water Day, or through our GIS Day, and there are other public engagement things that we actually participate in. Also through the enhanced capacity, through the human resource, enhanced technical and human resource capacity, we're able to enable and effectively and efficiently manage our water resources. And of course, the assessment through the resource monitoring and assessment region, we're able to also get our water resources master plan up and running, and this will show how much we have right across the island, our resource, and what we're able to take out and what is left for future demands and for continuous usage of the resource right across the island. So just for your information, the government owns all the water resources. Now you citizens can have rights to access the water, not to own it. And these rights are granted through the license system. Why do we regulate? We really regulate to ensure equitable access to the finite resources, to prevent over-abstraction and unsustainable abstraction, to ensure sustainability of all water resources, to provide guidance and priorities for various uses of water. So as you see here, the example is domestic versus irrigation versus industrial. If we have, for example, an application coming for water for potable uses, and there's another application for irrigation for that same source, then of course, because of the virtue of the act, which gave priority to domestic, we will have to consider water for potable use before we actually utilize it for irrigation. So the act actually dictates that domestic or potable uses is considered first. Also, we regulate to allow for better measurement of water usage, both the ground and the surface, thereby allowing for better management of the water usage. We actually regulate to also resolve conflicts among water users and to provide for systematic tariff fees for proportionate water usage. Now, the license and regulation section, we license and regulate drillers. And these drillers actually drill wells to access the water, underground water. So under the act, they all have to get a license from a WRA, and they actually need to be registered and to continuously and adhere to the conditions of their license. We regulate and allocate ground and surface water resources. We establish and maintain a system of monthly returns of abstraction records. We establish and maintain a system of biannual water quality returns. We prepare and maintain an inventory of current water production by hydrobasin. And hydrologic basin means that these are wide areas. We have 10 hydrologic basins right across the island, and these are areas which are demarcated based on surface flows for the management of the resources right across the island. We conduct field investigation in relation to application. We maintain a database of 880 licensees. We maintain a registry of all well records, permits, and abstraction license. And we prepare technical reports for each application and present these reports to the board on a monthly basis. So that unit, the license and regulation, affectionately known as the permit and license unit, consists of 7 trained professionals in geography, geology, hydrology, hydrogeology, environmental science, and planning. Now, the section is guided by these documents. The Water Resources Act is our foremost document. Vision 2030 also provides the guidance under which we actually operate, and that is the nation. The water sector policy, our unit manual, the renewal policy, license policy, and our volume-based fee, which is our newest policy that was formulated in 2017, 2018. Now, in order to get a permit for a license, you need, before you can get any new well drill, you need to submit an application to the authority. And this application is to grant you that permit to drill a well. And if you want to alter an existing well, whether deepen or widen it, you also need to apply for that to be done. And the documents that you need to submit for this to be done is the Form C, which is on our website, and you can actually get access to that easily. 2 copies of a site map at a 1 in 50,000 scale, application fee, which is 15,000, proof of ownership, And if you're a company, you have to submit a certificate of good standing. And if you are an individual who wants to set up a water shop, you'll need to give a proof of address. And for the abstraction license, you need to submit pretty much the same amount of information. However, this one you'll submit, instead of the Form C, you'll submit the Form A. And this will give you access to abstract and use, because that's what the Act states, that it is abstract and use water from, whether it is a surface or groundwater system. So for this license, if there are any change in the pumping system or where you're abstracting from, or the volume that you're abstracting, not to reduce it, but to increase it, you also need to submit a new application. And the Water Resources Act detail how and why you need that new application. So both Form A and C can be obtained from the WRA office or from our website at www.wra.gov.jm. And that non-refundable fee of $15,000 actually, which is a measly amount of money, actually covers the processing costs for the license or the permit. Now, when we're processing the license in-house, what do we do? The application is processed within 60 days, and that's 60 days is stipulated by the WRA Act. We look at the ability of the source to meet the demand reliably. We look at the quality of the source to meet the demand. So if you want to take water from a spring to use for domestic water, potable water use, we need to look at the water quality coming in to see if it meets the standard to be allocated for domestic use. We look at existence of prior users and the water rights that they have in stream uses of the water. So if there are other uses downstream of your area that you have applied for, we would look at what are the resources that they have actually been, the water rights that they have, the volume in the system, and how much you want to see if that system can accommodate all that water, all that you have requested. We'll look at the impact of the disposal of wastewater to ensure that we are safeguarding the public health and the environment. So if you have applied to do, say for example, processing commercial activity, and you're going to release water into the river itself, we need to look at that to ensure that we are protecting all the other users downstream. So those are some of the consideration that is taken when we're processing a license. We look at the provision of the master plan. I indicated before that there's a department that deals primarily with the master plan. And what they do, they look at the safe yield, how much water is in the basin, how much is actually allocated, and what is left, to make sure that there is sustainability of that resources. Now, the safe yield is that yield under which you can't go below, to make sure that we are not mining the water from the resource, from the aquifer system or from the river system. The consideration that the satisfaction of the demands of the public water supply is a matter of priority. I indicated earlier that if there are two application comes in, one for domestic and one for irrigation, the domestic is actually given priority, and that is actually entrenched into the Act. So public water supply is always a priority. The requirements of the applicant and whether or not he has financial or technical resource for the enjoyment of the license, that is also something that we consider. And the last one is the requirement of the land drainage. And the reason we look at the financial and technical resource of the applicant is because water is expensive to treat, to maintain your license. Even if you're drilling a well, it is a costly venture. So if you're going to apply just an application, say this because you want to, for want of a better word, just hold that license, that is not allowed. the WRA will have to make sure that if you have applied for the license, you have the financial resources to actually enjoy that license, one. Two, you actually utilize that resource to hold on to water resources when there are other users who need it for economic benefits or to provide for domestic water supply. We want to make sure that they have that access, that right. And that's why the water resources is there to manage the allocation of water right across to the different users. Before a license is granted, there's also an advertisement that is given out, and that this advertisement is placed twice in the local newspaper and at the local post office, so that persons have the opportunity to show if they have any sort of objection to the license being granted. For example, if you or somebody asks to make a request or an application for a property that there is a legal battle for, the person can actually come in and say, no, we have some sort of encumbrance on this property, so this license should not be granted. Or for whatever reason, sometimes the public might see it as impact on their livelihood, and they will object to the license. So those will have to be taken into consideration when we are granting a license. The public has a right, and they can actually object to the license. If the license is in support for a water packaging company, and we have many of them coming up now, we see a lot of water shops going up, they need to show that they have submitted an application to the Bureau of Standards and they have a food handler's permit, because of course water is food, for that water shop to be established. If no objections are received, then the license is taken to the board for 2 decisions, whether approval or refusal. Objections will need to be addressed in consultation with the applicant before this is taken for either approval or refusal. So I indicated before, if a license is refused, then the applicant has the right to appeal to the minister. And if it's granted, whether it's for a permit to drill a well or for a license to abstract and use water, the well permit is granted for 1 year and the license is granted for 5 years. And these are normally given with conditions. Now, some of the conditions are the license become null and void if no water is abstracted within 12 months of the date of the issue of the license. And this is to safeguard persons from trying to tie up water resources, meaning that they want to apply for a license just to hold on to it. No, we don't allow that. License amount must not be exceeded. Monthly abstraction data must be submitted to the Water Resources Authority, and this is one way in which we manage how much water is left for other users to benefit from. Chloride concentration should not exceed 250 milligrams per liter. Pumping water level should be 1 meter above mean sea level. They should not go below 1 meter above mean sea level. And this is to ensure that with seasonal variability, you don't fall below sea level in pumping, because you can introduce saline intrusion into the aquifer if you pump below sea level. Access recording devices, a flow meter has to be installed on each abstraction, at each abstraction source. Access to water level measurement has to be installed, still in tube, and this is for well system, not for surface system. And water quality data must be submitted by annually April and November during the wet and dry period for a number of parameters, and this is to ensure that we are monitoring the quality of the water in the basins. As indicated before, each license is valid for 5 years. And if there is no renewal prior to 6 months before the expiration date, the Act indicates that that license become expired, and you'll have to pay $45,000 if you come back within that 6 months or after the license has expired. Once you apply prior to the 6 months, you pay a fee of $30,000. And for the renewal, all the renewal of license is done in accordance with WRA renewal policy. So we monitor both the abstraction and the water quality to ensure that we control the allocation of the resources. We prevent over-abstraction. We protect our aquifer systems. We protect our consumers. We ensure safe use of the aquifer. And if the abstractor breach their license, this may lead to 3 different outcomes, whether it's suspension, revocation, or non-renewal of their license. Now, how can you help? You can help us, WRA, by implementing water conservation practices at home. And this is by fixing leaks, using water-efficient appliances, taking shorter showers, and watering lawns and gardens efficiently, using, some people use drip irrigation, and also monitor how much water they use to reduce the water consumption. And you can also educate yourself through the education and awareness and others about the importance of water conservation and the impact of water pollution on the environment. You can also organize workshops, seminars, awareness campaigns to promote responsible water usage. Also, through advocacy and policy support, we can advocate for stronger water conservation policies and regulations at the local, regional, and national level. And it can involve, get involved in public hearings, contacting elected representatives, and supporting organizations that work in water-related issues. Also, you can assist by doing rainwater harvesting and greywater recycling. I know persons who utilize their water from the washing machine to water the lawn. So those are some of the practices in terms of conservation, conserving water resources. Get involved also in river cleanup, beach cleanup. These will also help to protect and maintain our water bodies. Also monitoring, you can report illegal drilling and abstraction if you see them in your way, and also participate in programs that help to monitor the water quality in your area, support sustainable agriculture. And we can do that also by supporting our local farmers, those that utilize the proper mechanism in their agriculture. Instead of going and buying the overseas stuff, we can do our part by even purchasing from those local farmers that utilize those sort of equipment. That is a drip irrigation, crop rotation, and conserve the water resources. Get involved in community engagement and collaboration. Promote green infrastructure. That is critical. Reduce runoff by implementing rain gardens, permeable pavements, vegetative buffers. These are some of the things that we can do in our small areas, and then we can expand it to larger areas. And of course, taking personal accountability for the amount of water that we use. These are some of the work that we do in our units, and I did tell you quite a bit of them. And this is just a pictorial demonstration of what we do. And of course, the Water Resources Authority, Jamaica's water, every drop precious. Thank you much for listening. And that's the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morgan Johnson.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morgan Johnson, for that informative presentation. I have a question for you from one of our viewers online, which states, and this is for household purposes, what type of filter should one buy to take away chlorine and dirt from the water coming through the pipe?
I'm not familiar with the grade, but I know you can purchase filters at Jamaica Plumbing or some of those other places that can actually remove the turbidity from your water. In terms of the chlorine, I believe it also can remove some amount of chlorine, because I actually installed some of those on my pipeline, and it does reduce the turbidity. It means then that sometimes you'll have to change it a little bit more frequent than the usual 6 months. I change mine about 3 months because the water in my area is a little bit turbid. And also for the chlorine, not sure if, I think it actually works for the chlorine too, but I also add chlorine to mine after it goes through my filter, because I'm actually removing some of those test sediments and the bacteria from that water. So I actually add a little chlorine after it goes through my filter.
Oh, thanks for that, because I didn't know that we could do that. Thanks a lot. There are other questions from the floor, and I'll turn over to them.
Go ahead.
Okay, so thank you so much for the presentation. So one of the things that up to 3 years ago we used to hear was that Jamaica is known for the cleanest water in the world. So is it that it has changed? I can tell you that up to this morning, I turned on my pipe and this is the very first time I'm seeing black specks in the water. And I nearly had a heart failure. We threw out everything onto the container, filled it back. So is our water quality changing?
I don't want to say yes, and I don't want to say no, because we had done a study in 2019, 2020, which we saw that some of our aquifers are impacted by chloride, meaning that there are some ingress of saline front into some of our coastal aquifer systems. So that is because of sea level rise, climate change, and of course, you'll have those aquifers being impacted. However, our river systems, because of anthropogenic influences, some of them are in fact getting impacted, and they are deteriorating. Now, this is where we have to pull our hands and hearts together and help to manage the reservoirs in our little neck of the woods. And by doing that, you'll have a better approach for cleaning up and protecting our river systems. Because if each one of us see what is happening and actually make an outcry, advocate for persons to stop putting what you call it, with dirt, or not dirt, but untreated effluent into our river system, then you'll have persons not doing that, and you'll have a cleaner river system. So in our studies, we realized that some of our aquifers are in fact deteriorating, but we also see where some of them have gotten better. So in terms of, if you look at the balance, yes, it is in fact deteriorating, but there are other things that we have put in place to ensure that we manage the resource so that it doesn't get worse than how it is now.
Okay, so I understand that it is a regulatory authority. So it's really a two-part question. So the first, there was a more recent incident in 2023 where there's an oil spill in Bogok. So the first question is in relation to sanctioning companies that are responsible for these oil spills and intentional dumping of their waste products. What is the sanctioning like, or do you control the sanctioning, or what type of action do you take against these large corporations which are responsible for the majority of the deterioration of our natural water bodies? So you can answer.
See, the National Environmental Planning Agency, NEPO, they have that mandate to do the sanctioning under the environmental license and environmental permit system. The WRA actually don't sanction companies for oil spill. As I mentioned before, we go through the arm of NEPO for that. In terms of cleaning up, the water resources, if that they are impacted, we have to collaborate, not just WRA, but NEPA and other regulator authority, collaborate to see how best we can get them to do that sort of cleanup to make sure both the land, the environment, resource, water resource is actually cleaned and put back, restored back to its original state.
Okay, that was actually my second part of the question. How does the cleaning go?
Right.
Well, yeah, thank you.
If it is that we are interested in importing water, because I know that that is a thing, does the Water Resources Authority have an interest in that?
It is done through the Bureau of Standard, that sort of, and that regulating that part of it. In terms of the WRA, no, our act really gives us the management of Jamaica's water resources, not necessarily to look at overseas water coming into the island. But the Bureau of Standard actually manages that process in terms of what quality is coming in. And because of fair trade, of course, some of this, and I'm speaking out of my realm now. So some of this is not, can't be stopped because of trading barriers, et cetera, but they actually ensure that what we are getting in our island is actually fit for consumption.
Okay, thank you for that. So with relation to our drought and upcoming, we're expecting that we may actually go into another drought period. Last year, there were rumors, sorry, that it was illegal to have several tanks of water stored. And persons who had pools were also being told that they were not able to operate these pools or they shouldn't have the water. So is there anything that governs how much water you're allowed to keep? If it's for your own domestic purpose, is there a restriction? If you have a pool, do you have to dump it out in the drought time? What is going on here?
Well, the National Water Commission will dictate how much water you actually, what are how much you are able to utilize for that sort of recreation activity, because really that is a supply issue. Remember, we allocate to all different players. Now, in terms of supply to the domestic, to the household, the Water Commission actually dictates. Now, if there is a drought situation and this is informed, the Water Commission, National Water Commission, informed by the Water Resources Authority and the Met Office as to what the situation is in terms of the water resources, water across the island. And they would now say, all right, our system is at certain percentage. We can't allow you to do your washing of car, to utilize the water in the pools, et cetera, et cetera. You must only use water for your regular consumption, household consumption. They will dictate at that time what obtains, and actually they will state at that time the different restrictions. So I don't know of a certain percentage that you can use for your pools. I just normally see the advisory that says only for your regular consumption, no car washing, no gardening, no etc. And those are the limitations for the water because of the restriction, because of the drought.
So who is it that is in charge of the trucked water that comes around? Is it you or is it the Water Commission?
The Water Commission was sent to areas that don't have supplies. So both the Water Commission and the Ministry of Health will dictate how much, what quality they are allowed, or what they are allowed to actually distribute. The source of that water, where the water is coming from, and it's from I think they have a policy, and you can look for it online, that they take the trucking of water for domestic uses.
Over to you, Ms. Cruikshank.
Thank you very, very much for those answers. You really carried us a further way today with the information that you have provided with us. And for that, I'm going to turn over now to Miss Ashley Rosen.
Mrs. Morgan Johnson, on behalf of the Norman Manley Law School Legal Aid Clinic, we'd like to thank you for your very informative presentation today on the role of the Water Resources Authority in regulating and managing water resources across Jamaica and how we can help in protecting our water resources. As a symbol of our gratitude, I'd like to present this token to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We are now at the end of our week of activities, and I really hope that you were informed, educated, and that we accomplished our mission this week to inform you on the rights of the consumer. We really want to thank all the persons who participated in this week of activities, the presenters, the persons who showed up yesterday as a part of our in-person fair. We want to thank the Norman Manley Law School students for their participation and for the members of the public who turned out. Please continue to catch up by viewing our YouTube channel presentations. We go to the CLE NMLS LAC to see all the presentations online and to really make sure that you keep informed. Thank you so much for your participation.